This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.
When I was in my early 20s, I did one of the dumbest and one of the smartest things that I could have done. And that was I went on a lot of dates. So I signed up for pretty much every dating app there was. And I just said yes a lot. I said yes to men that I typically wouldn't have gone out with. And don't get me wrong, I still had some standards. I still had some red flags on dating profiles that if I saw these things, I was not going out with the guy. But I did expand my horizons and broaden my criteria a little bit. And that experience led to a lot of terrible dates. When I talk about this time period with family members or friends or with clients, I often refer to it as the time that I got a lot of free dinners. Um, but the experiences that I had necessarily weren't so great. And some of the men that I met were terrible. In fact, maybe I'll do a whole series one of these days on some of the awful dates that I went on. At the same time, I learned a whole lot about myself, about relationships, about men, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything because of that. And that gets me into what I wanted to talk to you about today. So, if this is your first time joining me, my name is Keshia Rice, and I am a dating coach. I'm also a hypnotherapist. I help women learn how to break from their unhealthy patterns, unhealthy generational patterns, and learn how to create happy, healthy, fulfilling relationships, right? And, during this time period, again, I was in my early 20s, and like a lot of people in their early 20s, you're still figuring out what it means to adult and what it means to figure out what it is that you want in life. So, because of that, this experience was incredibly helpful and insightful to me. And I want to talk about the difference between dating for fun, dating for learning, and dating for commitment and marriage, because there is a difference. And oftentimes I see people giving dating advice or receiving dating advice, and they don't understand or don't give that nuance if they're the ones giving the advice that depending on what you're dating for, there is a difference in how you behave, how you react, and what you should be doing in the process of this dating. So, we're going to start with dating for fun, experimentation, education, all of that. If you don't have a lot of dating experience, or if you've been out of the dating game for a long time, so you were married and now you're divorced, or you decided to just take some time away from romantic relationships because you wanted to focus on your own mental health, or you wanted to focus on career, things like that, then this is the stage that you need to be in right now. And, I have clients who come to me all the time, and when I say something like that, they're like, "Well, I'm really serious about getting married." And that's nice. I think that's great. I am married myself. So I understand wanting to get married, wanting to find that forever partner. However, you have to crawl before you can walk. And taking a time period where you were dating more for fun or you're dating more to learn is a really important part of getting to that commitment. So when you are dating for fun, when you're dating to get back into the dating game to learn more about yourself, there are a few things that you need to do. One is expand your dating pool. So there are plenty of ways to do that. That could be, for me as a Black woman, I dated every race and ethnicity. I did not restrict my dating criteria based on skin color. And my husband is not a Black man. I ended up in an interracial marriage. But, I think that this is something that oftentimes we have to consider because sometimes, especially if you are a woman of color, and you are a ambitious, professional woman of color, you have a high level position, or you're in entrepreneurship, you find yourself surrounded environments with people who don't look like you. And sometimes that can be frustrating and disheartening, but I would encourage you to lean into that. Use that as a chance to diversify your life and use that as a chance to, explore new people, new cultures, new things. And again, to expand your dating pool as well. Also just at the end of the day, dating is always going to be a numbers game. So anything that you can do to increase those numbers helps you. So beyond race and ethnicity, I also recommend that women expand their age dating pool. Now, I want to give some caveats on this. Before someone who listens to me who is 18 decides that they want to date someone who's 50, I don't recommend that at all. So beyond a certain age, you should, or below a certain age, you should be dating people who are close in age to you. So if you are 25 or younger and you're listening to me, stick with people who are within 2, 3 years of your age. Don't go further than that. And then as you start to get older, then, once you get beyond 25, then your age pool can expand a little bit more. So women in their 20s dating someone, say 5 to 7, 8 years older, not a big deal at all. Once you get into your 30s and even 40s, larger age gaps, say 10 years, are also okay. And also, as a woman gets older, considering dating younger men too, because yes, there's some truth to the idea of like women maturing faster and all of that. But once you get into, say, your late 20s, 30s, that doesn't become as much of a thing. If you're still meeting men who are immature in their 30s and beyond, it's the men that you're experiencing, not not that men in general at that age are emotionally immature. You know, back to my own life and personal example, my husband is 5 years younger than I am. So I definitely tell women who, once you start getting into your late 20s, looking at a man who's a couple of years younger is, a pretty good option for you actually. And once you get into your, say, 30s, 40s, considering men who are 5, 6, 7 years younger should be in your expanded dating pool. It should be an option for you. So beyond, race, beyond age, other ways to expand your dating pool are just getting out more. So finding new ways to meet people, finding new hobbies, new classes that you can take, exploring all of these avenues to meet new people, especially if you are not the type of person who um, considers yourself to be very social, if you're not the type who does a lot of going to parties or going to networking events and all of that, then you need to consider things like volunteer events, for example. If you are a religious person, I work with mostly women of faith. So I'm Christian myself, and I often tell Christian clients to not only look at their church, but also expand. Go visit other churches, go to other church conferences, find Christian organizations in your area. And I would say the same for a client who is Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or insert whatever religion. Go beyond your local center of faith and explore meeting people who share your faith but are in, other houses of worship in your same town or the next town over. Also, dating apps and online dating, we live in a world that is increasingly governed by technology, and we can fear technology or we can embrace it and make it our friend. So expand your dating pool. Also, as you are meeting people and not just dating, the other thing that I encourage clients to do is to just in general have more conversations. So, you see someone at a coffee shop, male or female, ask them about what they're drinking, if it's something that looks good and something that you might want to try. Or start making more small talk. Yes, I know it feels awkward at first, but it is a practice skill. The more you do it, the better that you'll get at it. And as you start meeting people, so you're meeting people out, you're also meeting people by going on dates because you have new activities, new hobbies, you are finding these opportunities to meet different people. After you have these encounters, take the time to journal on it. Ask yourself, what is it that I liked about this person? What is it that I didn't like about this person? Did they say or do something that triggered me in any way? What were those ways? Start learning what it is that you like, what you don't like, what you need. Start learning about your habits of communication. If you were in a serious relationship with someone, would you prefer to be with someone who was a texter or someone who did phone calls? Is there a type of day where, play it out. If somebody were contacting you every single day, would you be the type to want morning phone calls or morning text, or would you prefer that they hold off until later in the day? And these things may seem small, but when you get to the point where you're really setting boundaries and standards, it becomes very important. When I was single, I worked for the most part an overnight shift. So, I dated some men who, because of their schedules, they would text me at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I would set that boundary like, "Hey, because of the hours I work, please either text me really early in the morning or, text me in the evening after you get off from work and after I'm waking up to have dinner because, I'm not going to see your messages at like 1 in the afternoon. I'm asleep. I am dead to the world, right?" And it seems like such a small thing, but one, it irritated me when men didn't respect those boundaries, when they were like, "Well, I'll just text you whatever, and if you're asleep, that's fine. You can just text me whenever you wake up." Well, sometimes I had to keep my phone on for work purposes. So on those days, then I was being woken up by these text messages. And also, I had some men who would do that and then also get annoyed that I wasn't responding. If they texted me at 1 o'clock, that I wasn't responding at 1:15 after I had explained more than once that, hey, I'm asleep. I'm not going to be answering messages at that time of day. So, learning these things about yourself and your habits and also practicing that. So when you first start dating someone, even if you're not dating for commitment, even if you're more just dating to put yourself out there, practicing saying to people like, "Hey, I would prefer to be contacted at this time. I prefer to be contacted in this way. I notice that you text me a lot, and I think that that's great. I appreciate your consistency in communication, but I'm the type of person who prefers phone calls. Or I've noticed that you like to call me a lot, and I love that. And I love that you want to get to know me better. At the same time, I have a really busy schedule. So can we hold those phone calls for the weekend and text during the week? Learn how to set those boundaries when you are dating for fun or to learn more about yourself. I also want you to look at your standards, look at your boundaries, look at your requirements for who it is that you want to date. And you should be slightly more relaxed on those standards. And I do mean slightly. Don't go overboard. um, but I say that because, I will see women do things like, when a client works with me, the first thing that I have them do is create a list of what it is that they want in a relationship. And, you know, I have a very specific way that I like to go through this list and help them refine what things really matter to them. I have often seen these list things that are very superficial. Like, for example, one, demanding that any guy you date must be over 6 feet tall. If you have something like that, I would encourage you to consider men who are taller than you, 5'8", 5'9", I say that in my example, I'm 5'3". So, considering men who are 5'6", 5'7" is still a few inches taller. Um, but, expanding your criteria in those ways. Also, I've seen women say things like, back to being a Christian woman, if you are Christian, you know that there are 50 million different denominations. If you're not Christian, just know that within Christianity, there are 50 million denominations. And before anyone says it, I studied religion in college is one of the many things I studied in college. Um, so I know that Jewish people and Muslims, Hindus, I know that they're all different sects, but in Christianity is crazy with the number of denominations. Um, and I say that because with all these different names, a lot of these denominations still have the same beliefs essentially. The day to day doesn't really, there's really no difference. So I've seen women say, well, I'll only date other men who are Methodist. And then they meet someone who is, say, Baptist and find out that their values are pretty much still the same. So considering relaxing those rules a little bit and experimenting and seeing how that feels, because then after you go on a certain number of dates, then you'll start to really figure out like, okay, I relaxed this thing and I found out that it really doesn't matter. Like I thought that I needed someone who had the exact same taste in music as me, but this person listens to heavy metal music, and although we can't talk about music together, there are so many other things that I liked about them that that would be something I can relax, right? And you'll also find that you're like, okay, I went on a date with a guy who didn't meet this criteria. And after talking to him a few times, absolutely not. This is a standard I must have in place. This is something I most definitely need. I need to keep. And that will help you when you're dating for marriage and commitment to really keep that in mind when you get tempted to relax the standards that you have. Because after this period of dating for fun and dating for learning, you are going to come away with a much better set of standards and boundaries that are really aligned with what you now know you need in a relationship. So then when you're dating for marriage and commitment and you're tempted to veer off that list, you can be like, no, I did that, right? I tried to date someone who didn't meet this and it didn't work out at all. I was very frustrated by the situation, or I just found that this is something that I didn't like, and I really need the person that I married to have this thing. And that will help you really stay on that path of finding someone who is aligned with your values. Now, if you're watching the video version of this, you're going to see me looking down because I have notes. But I wanted to talk about, now that we've talked about dating for fun, experimentation, for learning, now I want to talk about dating for marriage. So if you are dating for marriage and commitment, then the dating game becomes a little bit different. And here are some of the ways. I mentioned one just now, and that is that list of what it is that you need in a relationship. That list is going to become much more refined. And you know how I talked about when we're dating for fun and we're dating for learning about ourselves? You know, you need to come home after your dates and write down what you liked, what you didn't like, and evaluate. So now that you've been doing this work, you have that list in front of you. You have what it is that you need in a relationship. So now when you go on dates, you need to come home now that you're in the season where you're dating for marriage and commitment, and you need to look at that list and you need to decide, hey, this person that I went out with, do they meet the things that are on this list? Do they satisfy the boundaries and standards that I set? Were there any deal breakers that I noticed? And if so, then that means that, I need to move on and try to find someone else. The other thing about dating for marriage and commitment is there's always a lot of debate about dating more than one person at a time and whether or not that's quote unquote okay. And I think you should. Um, the whole idea of putting all your eggs in one basket when you barely know someone just doesn't make sense. As you're dating, if you're looking for the right partner, again, dating is a numbers game. However, if you're dating for fun, if you're dating just to learn about yourself, then, swipe right all day, go on all the dates. When you are dating for marriage and commitment, then I still believe that you should be open to dating more than one person until you find someone who you're willing to commit to and that person is willing to commit to you as well. However, that's now gonna be narrowed down more to say dating maybe 2 men at a time or 3 men at a time, or even being satisfied with only dating one person until you find someone else who also meets a minimum level of your standards and not feeling the need to go out and go on a whole bunch of dates. Because again, when you're dating to learn about yourself, then going on a bunch of dates makes sense because you're learning what you like and what you don't like. And I just want to be very clear when I say this that dating does not mean having sex with. Dating means spending time with, getting to know someone. Because whenever I make this comment about multi dating, there's always somebody who wants to counteract with, well, you shouldn't be whoring around, you shouldn't be sleeping around, any of that. One, at the time I'm recording this is 2023 and we need to stop sex shaming. But also beyond that, again, dating is getting to know and spending time with someone does not mean that you need to sleep with them. So don't let other people put that in your head, but also don't feel like you have to reach a certain level of physicality with someone just because they took you out on a date. But also when we're dating for marriage, when you're dating for finding your forever partner, you definitely need to have more of a screening process. So back to my story, when I mentioned when I was going on all those dates during that period, even then on dating apps and dating websites, I had a bare minimum set of criteria when I was evaluating a dating profile. If I saw these things, I wasn't talking to this person. But when I really got serious about, okay, now I'm dating for commitment, that bar got even higher. So that meant for me, like, having fewer matches, matching with fewer men, but also when it came to men that I met in person, or if I met someone on an app and then took it off the app, there was, I instituted a 3 strikes rule. So, I see 3 red flags, and I had my list of red flags just like I had my list of standards and boundaries. So I saw 3 red flags, I was out, point blank period. I'm not giving any explanations. This isn't working for me. So, yes, your standards do get higher. You do get more picky. You also need to still, on a regular basis, clarify what it is that you want and need. So, yes, I have my clients make a list of the things that they want in a relationship, but I also encourage them to, especially after we've been working together for a certain period of time, go back and refine that list. And also, feel free to revise it. I'm married and I still revise my list of what it is that I want in a husband. Because if I'm looking at that list and I'm seeing things are lacking in my own relationship, then that's something that my husband and I can talk about on both ends. So maybe there's something that I would like him to do that he is not doing, and we can talk about that. But also, when you're making this list, you're not just making it for your partner, you're also making sure that you're the complement of this list. So, in some ways, you want to be the things on that list. If you say that you want a partner who's patient, then you need to be patient as well. You want a partner who's emotionally intelligent, then you need to be emotionally intelligent as well. Some things, again, are the complement. If you want a partner who is generous and a giver, then that means that you have to be good at receiving. I use that example because that one specifically applied to me. I was very used to, people pleasing and giving to others. And then when I met my husband and he wanted to give me gifts, I was very suspicious of it, right? So I had to learn how to be better at receiving. So you want to constantly, on a regular basis, clarify that list. You also want to check in with your discernment. How well are you at spotting red flags? And not just in romantic relationships, because all relationships are related. So, look at your friendships. Think about your coworkers, or if you own a business, your customers and your clients. How good are you at spotting red flags from the beginning? Your first impressions of people, are they generally right? If they are, then that's great. And if not, then you need to work on refining that and getting better at that. Do you allow yourself to stay present when you're dating? Do you also know your worth? And when I say know your worth, that means that your standards, your boundaries, those are yours. And when you have healthy self-esteem, when you truly love yourself, you own that. So when people try to do things that go against your standards, go against your boundaries, you let them know. And if necessary, you cut them off. Too often, if a woman has not done enough healing work, if she hasn't gotten to that place of loving herself as much as she should, she'll say she has certain standards, she'll say she has certain boundaries, but somebody crosses that boundary, someone does something that's beneath those standards, and she lets it slide. She doesn't say anything, or she'll say something, but she'll still continue to stay in the relationship. You teach people how to treat you. So if you put up with certain things, people will continue to do them. And what are you also doing to avoid self-sabotage? Too often, if we have been in situations in which we've been hurt, our brain craves what's familiar and it also does whatever it can to protect us and to not allow us to be hurt again. And in a lot of cases, that is a wonderful thing. But at the same time, it's really important that you understand how you were raised and understand your attachment styles. You need to understand if you are the type of person that when you get in relationships, you have a tendency to go towards maybe a little codependent, a little bit clingy, and you need to learn how to create healthy distance in a relationship. Have your own life, have your own hobby, have your own interest. If you are the type of person who is more avoidant, which this was my battle back in the day, I was definitely the type that I would get into relationships and then I would leave the person before he could leave me, right? I was the type of person who would, anytime someone got attached to me, I would get a little bit annoyed because I prided myself in being aloof and not letting anyone get too close, right? So if you are that type of person, then you need to examine why you insist on being so quote unquote independent, why you insist on being a lone wolf all the time, and what you can do to be more vulnerable, to be more open, and to allow for partnership in your life. What are the habits that you've had in the past that have ended relationships? This is a time where you need to get really real with yourself and consider those things. And again, the ways in which you have fallen short, not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships and other relationships as well. At the end of the day, dating for fun and learning versus dating for commitment really comes down to where the intention is. So when you are dating for learning, the intention is you're learning about yourself and how you relate to others. Whereas when you're dating for marriage and commitment, then you are learning not only about you, because the best self-development comes from relationships. It really truly does. But you are also learning how you can contribute to a partnership. And you are understanding that, okay, if I contribute to a partnership in this way, then this is what I need someone else to contribute. So now it's about fitting together pieces of a puzzle and using that to um, using that criteria, that idea of puzzle pieces coming together to find, people talk about better half, and I don't really like that phrase because two whole people should come together for a relationship, but you get the concept. You're finding someone who is a complement to you, and the two of you can work together to build something bigger than the both of you. So if you've enjoyed this episode, let me know. I am on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Keshia Rice. So send me a message, let me know your thoughts. And also let me know if you'd like me to do more on what type of criteria you should be looking for in finding a partner. I will talk to you later. Love you so much. Bye. Hey there. So you made it all the way to the end of the episode, which means I have two things to say. One, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And two, you like me. You really like me. So I would appreciate it if you would show that like
by subscribing to this podcast so that more people can hear about it and enjoy it as much as you do. And if you want to know more about any of the links that I mentioned on this episode or any guests that I've had, be sure to go to KeshiaRice.com/links. That's KeshiaRice.com/links. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode. So see you then.